Integrative Inquiry, Week 14 Practice, Integration into Daily Life.
Let's invite in a gentle attention to the seat in the chair, the feet pressing gently into the floor. Noticing the back upright, alert yet relaxed. Noticing the sensation of the hands and where they're resting. Inviting the eyes to soften, either closing them or gazing down softly on something as if you're looking but not really seeing. Then inviting a curiosity, a playful curiosity into the breath sensation. Are you breathing? How do you know? Are you noticing the rise and fall of the belly or the chest? Are you noticing the temperature of the air as it passes the nostrils? Is it moist or dry? Is there a gentle pause in between the inhale and the exhale? What is here to be noticed? Seeing if you can quietly name what is here with just one word. Then when you notice, going into the story of what's being noted. What do you sense as you invite a gentle attention back to the breath sensation in the body? You have arrived here. The thoughts may flitter to past and future. Other bodily sensations may call for your attention. Or you may notice attention resting on sounds in the environment. And you are here. You intended to arrive here. And I am grateful. Inviting attention to rest on the sound sensation of the bell. Then inviting attention back into the screen. Thank you. So welcome to our final week of practice together. And We desire to be with you on this journey in whatever ways that we can. So we've sent you a link to a survey in Qualtrics. It's a confidential survey and in some cases maybe an anonymous survey if you don't choose to share your name and contact information. So the invitation is to reflect on these questions and respond to the questions in the survey. And the invitation here right now is just to take a moment and use the chat window if you'd like to share, just pausing for a moment and inviting these questions to land in a place that resonates from stillness, the stillness of, or perhaps not, noticing there is no stillness. And that's there too, just noticing what we're noticing. As we invite attention to rest on these questions, then inviting you to share in the chat window whatever it is that you're noticing that arises with these questions. So how are you feeling about your mindful compassion practice thus far? What are you noticing? Just taking a moment to notice what arises, writing it down on pen and paper, putting it in the chat window, or just gently noticing it in the field of awareness. And Ari is noticing that your practice is like a sanctuary. Thank you, Ari. So inviting a release of that question and inviting in, what practices are you finding most helpful? What mindful compassion practices are you finding most helpful? Just singing what's arising into awareness. Noticing what you're noticing, seeing if you can suspend the judgment, the storytelling. Either writing what you're noticing down on pen and paper or sharing it in the chat window, your choice, or just holding it in a gentle awareness. Martha's noticing that you find that a simple body anchor really assists my practice, such as a hand on the heart. Thank you, Martha. And releasing that question, inviting that body anchor. And noticing what you're noticing as I offer this question. Who or what supports your mindful compassion practice? Who or what supports your mindful compassion practice? Inviting in either journaling on pen and paper, sharing in the chat window, or just noting. And then releasing that question and what you're noticing. And anchoring again into this moment, whatever that means to you. Perhaps a physical anchor, physiological anchor. And then inviting your attention back into the PowerPoint. And thank you, Keith. Keith is noticing that who or what supports his practice is scheduling the breaks in his calendar. Thank you, Keith. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm smiling because it reminds me of when I chose to move away from an electronic calendar back to a paper calendar so that I could see more visually, oh, here's where it's stacking up. And as my one of my sisters tells me, it's hard to live a contemplative life if you are scheduling every moment to be active. So it's like, oh yeah, that's a good point. I better schedule in some stillness, some listening. Thank you. So at this point in our journey today, the invitation is to share whatever you'd like to share in the chat window. And also, we'd like to remind you again of our invitation to you to complete those questions, and there are a few more online in that link that was sent to you. And if you can't find that link, we'll post it on the website where you access the curriculum, so you can find it and then go right to that. And share with us what you're discovering and what you need to continue to support your practice, so that we can offer resources that may be in your area or offer other resources that we know of, and also invite you to bring our attention to resources that you are aware of that in your area or online that may be in service to continuing this integration of the practice into our moment-to-moment lives. So Martha is noticing that kindness towards myself for short practices enables keeping the practice going. It has helped to make practice a daily thing. Also make sure others know you are unavailable. Yeah, great, thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. One of my colleagues, I'm in my office, and one of my colleagues gave me a door hanger to hang outside the door that says, I'm meditating. Just an invitation to avoid knocking on the door. But even though sometimes I put these signs on the door, it gets knocked on anyway. So it's kind of funny. But just finding out what works for you and your environment. Yeah. So we're inviting in, and appreciate your sharing this, Martha. So in mindful compassion practices, we want to be cognizant that there is no arrival, that the actual part of the practice is no goals. Even though we've talked about envisioning for the future, and some people might think of that as setting goals, but the idea is to get clear on intention and committing to the intention for a way of being in the world, and then noticing in each moment how choices are in alignment with that way of being or out of alignment of that way of being. And it's my understanding that these practices were given to us to heighten our moment-to-moment awareness, to heighten a way of being that is aware and compassionate. And so it makes sense then, if that is not a part of your intention for the way that you want to live, then you would just set these practices aside and say, that's interesting neuroscience and that's interesting wisdom tradition, but it's not for me. If it is not in alignment with your vision for who you are and who you are becoming. There's a few more things that we'd like to dive into today, and we asked several of these questions on the PowerPoint that you were invited to watch before today. But our point is that we've given you some tools. There are many, many tools out there, and many of you likely have other tools that we haven't introduced or haven't shared with you or haven't invited you to practice. And so our invitation also is to share those with us, share any links to those that we might have permission to repost, so that we can build the toolkit, if you will, that's freely available to individuals. Again, it's a part of our mission at the Rushing to Yoga Foundation to make these practices freely available so that they are accessible to all. So the invitation now then is to shift and think about maybe one thing that might keep you from practicing. When you notice that you're not practicing, what are you noticing? So just taking a moment, grounding into the body, the breath, and just seeing what arises. Again, you're welcome to journal. You're welcome to use the chat window. You're welcome to simply notice what keeps you from practicing. Seeing if you can notice that while suspending the judgment, it just is. See if you can notice and offer kindness to what you're noticing. And then letting that question go. And letting the responses to the question go. And inviting a physical anchor into your awareness, your practice, a physiological anchor into your practice, as you invite your attention to rest back on the screen. And so Ari is noticing what keeps you from practicing, that busyness, life complexity inhibits my practice at times. Yes, I hear you, Ari, and I'm sure we could do a show of hands. Anybody else noticing that? Yeah. Yes. See, Ari, you are not alone. Thank you all for sharing in that. My hand is up. Yes. I had a colleague who recently came back from a couple of months of silent retreat, and she was sharing with me that she noticed this just while she was on retreat, just this like need, I gotta get something done, I gotta do something. And she's like, I constructed my life to be here. Everyone knew I would be out of touch for two months, and I just kept thinking, I got to do something. And Martha, I hear you resonating that, the sense of urgency regarding any number of requests coming from others or deadlines. Yeah, yes, yeah. So not something that you might notice on silent retreat, or maybe you do notice the deadlines that are waiting for you when you get back. So yes, let's just show of hands. Anybody resonate with this? The sense of urgency from people's requests. The deadlines. Yes, you again. Good company, Martha. Thank you all. You're in great company. We are all in this with you. And so the way that we, particularly in higher ed, have rewarded and really privilege productivity. So we privilege movement toward some end. We privilege accomplishing something, whether it is how many courses can you teach, how many publications can you produce, how many grant requests can you write, how many students can you serve, how many service responses can you get off your plate, a number of things. Yes, so we reward productivity. And so my invitation for you is to, as we've worked on in our earlier communication practices, rather than ask the how can I, or why is this happening, invite in what does it look like for me to co-create or integrate our practices from week 12, integrate stillness, integrate a pause, integrate a breath, integrate a tuning up of compassion and awareness into the deadlines, into the urgent requests, into the life complexity, into the very full calendars that we have. What does it look like to begin to integrate these practices? And so I'll just pause here for a moment and invite in just a reflection of that. What does it look like? And my invitation to you is you could either journal or share in the chat window. What does it look like for you personally to begin to integrate this into what you notice that keeps you from practicing? What do you notice as you consider integrating these practices into what you notice that keeps you from practicing? Right, taking a moment to release that question and the responses. Inviting attention back to the screen. And thank you. Noticing that the sense of urgency regarding any number of requests coming from others or deadlines, you love this idea, and I'm going to share it in a writing workshop next week. Great. Thank you, Mark. Great. Thank you. Yes. So this integration practice that we practiced in week 12, bringing that where we were integrating our strengths with our opportunities to the other side of our strengths. So thinking about integrating contemplative practices into a world that privileges productivity, a world that where our worth is measured by what we produce. Yeah. So what does it look like? And I'm just inviting in the holding of that awareness and inviting that in when I notice, I'm using my eye language because this is what I noticed, when I notice that, so I'll back up, my wonderful husband, whose name is Robert, asked me the other night, where did you just go? we were working side by side, which we do sometimes, and he said, where did you just go? And I said, I don't know, but all of a sudden it was like 25 thoughts came into my mind at one time. And so it was like I had this out of body experience as I noticed thought about, and they were all deadline project related. And he and I said, what did you notice? And he said, I noticed that you just kind of got this, like, just life force drained out of you, and you were not in the body. I was like, well, I wasn't in the body. And I thought, what does it look like right now to just notice that with kindness and compassion, and then just invite in one at a time, holding open my planner and scheduling in, oh yes, remember this, like I'll drop it in here, this 5 minutes here, I'll drop it in this 7 minutes here, this 15 minutes here, or I need 2 hours for that. Right, what does that look like? And then allowing then the stillness to for me, and I welcome your wisdom, for me, a practice that is an integration practice where I am noticing, getting swept away by the deadlines and the thoughts, and some of them were like really fun, right? Like, oh, I could do this with this, right? And but also realizing that it was just, it does take me out of right here, right now. So just putting it into this piece of paper is a useful integration practice. And the idea of this is, the Robert Frost poem that the best way out of it is through. And so thinking about, again, leveraging integration, thinking about that, whatever it is that keeps me from practicing, that is the practice. If I think it's an obstacle or I'm judging myself for it, it can also be the practice and an opportunity to integrate and just tune up the inviting in. And then doing this again, as we mentioned, that with this kindness, that there's nothing to fix about you, there's nothing wrong with you. Baron Baptiste always said, "You're perfectly imperfect." I and so is everyone else. I just always really, when he said that, it was like, oh, I don't have to hide it anymore. Right? I don't have to hide it. I'll just be my imperfect self. So liberating. And it's also an invitation to look at, again, bringing this lens of self-compassion and inquiry into some questions about where in our life are we not free. So what I am inviting now to do, this is private reflection. This is taking a moment. I'm going to offer these questions to you and invite you to take your pen and paper out and grounding again, physically grounding, seat in the chair, physiologically grounding, the breath sensation in the body. And just taking a moment to journal. Where in your life are you noticing you're not free to be yourself? Where are you noticing you're constrained in expressing yourself? When the mind goes to the future, in what areas does it not feel inspiring? Where might there be a limit on expression of love or infinity? You're welcome to take one of these questions, just one. Just write whatever comes to mind. And I'll ring a bell after a moment. Just write whatever comes to mind, whatever you're noticing, one or more of these questions, what's completely up to you, what's in service in this moment. Taking a moment more to complete your writing, offering kindness to what you're noticing, offering non-judgment. And taking a moment to release the pen, anchoring again, physical sensation of the body in the chair, physiological sensation of the breath in the body. And then inviting the pen to the hand, the pen to the journal. Taking a moment more to reflect on these questions, one or more, and just writing what you notice. What areas of my life do not have a vision that touches me deeply or moves me powerfully? Where might I just be tolerating my life? What areas of life for me are completely unexplored? Just noticing what you're noticing. And taking a moment to wrap up what you're writing. And then inviting the pen to rest on the paper. Inviting in grounding body in the chair. Noting of the breath in the body. And just taking a moment to notice what you're noticing. You're welcome to use the chat window if you'd like to share what you're noticing after you practiced that inquiry. And as you're writing, we also want to invite you to know that you can rewatch this video at any time and pause if you'd like some more time to reflect. There are no right or wrong responses, of course, to these questions. They're simply just becoming aware, acknowledging what is. And the invitation here is, again, just another way to look at this presencing. In our video, we spoke that we're really using Otto Scharmer's theory U as the basis to move toward organizational transformation. And what we have been practicing these 14, 15 weeks is moving down the U to the bottom of the U, where Otto Scharmer talks about, in essence, pure presence. And here, the way that Baron Baptiste phrased this is, we're just beginning to articulate that I'm actually just present to the experience of this. And it may be, you could use these towards yourself as a leader, you could utilize these for your, or in an organizational context, in a family context. But the invitation here is that however we noticed we responded to these questions, then now we have an opportunity to think about integration and add another layer of inquiry onto this about distinguishing the essential from the non-essential. So earlier, one of you shared that what keeps you from practicing is this busyness, life complexity. And all of us joined you in noticing that, right? That we noticed that. And so here's an opportunity to invite in reflection from this place of stillness, listening to the body, and just writing down where we notice essential from non-essential. And seeing if we can invite ourselves to simply be with what we're noticing. So it's an invitation to be with, in my case, the discomfort of noting that urgency to respond, the urgency to be of a service, the whatever, right? The whatever the story is. And what we've been also focusing on through these 14, 15 weeks is noticing what just is and when we're going into the storytelling of it. And so Baron Baptiste would talk about this of can we be present to simply what is, this discomfort, this pain, this suffering, rather than the interpretation of it, which moves us towards suffering. It shouldn't be there. I should have this figured out by now. Why do I keep doing this? What is wrong with me? Whatever it might be, right? Why can't those people just blah? Right? And the interpretation of whatever is typically what really then pulls us out, what takes us out even more. Does that make sense? Just checking the chat window. So in Otto Scharmer's Theory U, the invitation is to begin to just presence ourselves to what is, and hone in on, again, one way of looking at this as the essential, the non-essential, the what is versus the story I'm telling, the fact versus the interpretation. And again, see if we can just notice in the body, the thoughts, what is here. And then play around to speaking, drawing, coloring, whatever, to the experience of it. Okay, that's an invitation. And so Baron would always just say, can you just let go of all the stuff you make up about it? Like that it's about you, that it's, you know, just be with it for what it is and what it's not. And similar to Otto Scharmer's Theory U, Baron Baptiste is saying, because if we can presence ourselves as leaders to what is really here, the possibilities are born out of the experience of what is, not the experience of what is not. The possibilities are not born out of the story we're telling ourselves, the story that I don't have time to practice, this, which is a story I tell of myself, the story of I can't possibly integrate mindful compassion practices into higher education. Higher education is just too messed up. Like, I can't possibly integrate a value of being in a culture that values me only for what I produce. That's a story. It's a story. So what are the possibilities? Okay. So questions, I'm just pausing here. Questions, thoughts, ideas. I'm just checking into the chat window before we move into some more inquiry. This is packed with inquiry. I recognize that. Okay. So similar to our practice in week 13, last week, where we noticed what happens in the body physiologically, the mind, when we make a commitment to something, to a way of being, to a practice, to trying on something new. Baron Baptiste has a practice that we went through when we were becoming certified yoga teachers, that when we commit to being, that we may notice that we need to give up something else that we're committed to. And for me, the journey is, if I'm committed to being, I need to give up that I source my value to productivity. If I'm committed to being, living a mindful compassion life, I need to give up that I'm sourcing my value to productivity, because that, in my post-tenure review, I have to show productivity. We don't give merit raises here, but even to get a market salary increase, you have to show productivity, and in a comparative way as well, right? So what if I could give up, that those are mutually exclusive. What if I could give up the thought that I could integrate mindful compassion with sourcing of value to productivity, or knowing that in order to keep my job, I have to be productive? So the invitation here is whatever you're noticing, whatever you're committed to, whatever you need to give up, that is based on these, may or may not be based on these earlier reflections. The invitation now is to physically ground the body, physiologically anchor the body with the breath, and then invite in the journaling to think, to consider, this is for your eyes only, you're welcome to use a chat window if you'd like, but what is the cost of keeping what you want to give up? What is the cost of keeping what you want to give up? So for example, if I give up that I source my entire value to my productivity, what in the story that I'm telling myself is that I will become less productive. Therefore, people will see me having less value. Therefore, I will have less value and purpose in life. So what is the cost of keeping what you want to give up? Taking a moment to journal just whatever's coming up for you, seeing if you can suspend inner critic, self-editing. Just write whatever is noticing, and please continue to write until you hear the sound of the bell. Taking a moment to complete what you're writing. And in hearing the sound of the bell, inviting the pen to place down. And just noticing what you're noticing. Anchoring in the body, anchoring in the breath. And then thinking of what the benefit of keeping what you want to give up is. What is the benefit of keeping what you want to give up? So for example, if I keep that I source my value to productivity, then I get to be, or get to continue to be, the go-to gal. I get to continue to be the person who gets called on to do something or gets cited in a publication or whatever, right? I get to keep that. Now again, it doesn't have to be fact, right? It could be the stories I'm telling myself. These are the stories I'm telling myself. So the invitation to you is to take a moment, take the pen back up in the hand if you have the ability to do so, and continue to journal. What is the benefit of keeping what you want to give up? Just noticing that. What's the benefit of keeping what you want to give up? Taking a moment to wrap up what you are writing. And inviting your attention to rest on the sound of the bell. Okay. And thank you. And just noticing what you're noticing. So Mike shared that the cost of keeping what you want to give up is losing out on love, peace, connection, inner higher power, freedom, fulfillment, appreciative of joy, integrity of purpose, and beloved community. So he would lose out on that. And if he keeps what he wants to give up, then, maybe I got this right. The benefit is love, peace. The cost is disempowerment, less available choice, only apparent financial security and position, joined collective, not what you see as a beloved community, culture of peace. Thank you, Mike. Yeah. So just taking a moment to notice what you notice, and anything that you wish to share as you practice this. The cost and the benefits of keeping these stories that we tell ourselves. One of the things that I've noticed that a lot of participants share is if they get to keep the story that they're telling themselves, the benefit of keeping it is that they get to be right. And that they get to feel justified or righteous. And in giving it up, the cost of keeping it is that they might feel a loss of power. They might get a sense that they'll become disrespected. And so in this entire process, what you're noticing as you write, the invitation then is to go back to this process where there's a physiological connecting to the breath. There may be a physical grounding the body in the chair. And then you can invite in the Byron Katie practice that we've been practicing. Is this true? Is it true beyond a shadow of a doubt? Who would I be if I didn't think it was true? Who would I be? What would I choose if I thought it was true? And the idea of this is that we begin to cultivate more awareness of our choice. And Baron Baptiste always talks about choice as an action of declaring acceptance of what is and what is not after consideration. So it's a choice. Choice is an action of declaring acceptance of what is and what is not after considering what is really here and what is just the story of what is here. What's the interpretation of what is here? And I'll get back to that in that slide in a moment. So the invitation here is that as we practice the integration of what we've been practicing for 15 weeks, is that we begin to explore, who am I? What do I want? For what is my life purpose? For what am I grateful? And hold this intention, either through visioning or moment-to-moment awareness. Hold that in awareness, gently, loosely, as we notice also, who am I in relationship to this moment? How do I feel about it? What is my role? What are the options that I have within my locus of control? Remembering that changing others is just not, it's not our job. It's not what we, even if it is your job, it's not your job, if you know what I mean. And then exploring the choices. And this is just another process of noticing choice is available when we declare acceptance after consideration, after contemplation of what is and what is not, and which choice will be the kindest to ourselves and to others. What are the consequences? Can I choose the consequences of that choice? And then own the choice. So this is moving us now, beginning to move us back up Theory U, where we start to see the possibilities for co-creating something different than what we have. Does that sound fun? And something that we may build on in later courses, but this is based on Parker Palmer's work, again from Wisdom Traditions, which is the Engage in the Wisdom Circle. And how many of you have had the privilege of participating in a wisdom circle, sort of the Quaker definition of the wisdom circle, not a healing circle, but a wisdom circle? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, powerful, yes? Just a powerful experience. And it was this wisdom circle that that was offered. Lori Schwanbeck offered me the question, right? So in a wisdom circle, you share a challenge that you're having very briefly, and the wisdom participants just ask you questions that are to deepen awareness. And Lori Schwanbeck asked me this question: to what do you source your value? I still get goosebumps when I remember that moment. And it was just like a zinger. It was like, wow, that is the question that I need to guide the clearing, the distinguishing from essential and non-essential. Yeah. Thank you. So we are, so thank you, Mike. Mike loves the practice of choices, inclusive, conscious, and free, rather than decisions, which comes from the Latin to kill the alternatives. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. That's powerful. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. All right. So other thoughts or questions? Right. If not, moving toward the end of our course time together in this way. Some of you I'll be seeing in other courses. We wanted to leave you with resources. And again, remembering that we invited you into a questionnaire, and Mandy's on here. Mandy, thank you so much for letting me know that you didn't have the option to choose all that applied. There was only one choice, so thank you. That is now fixed. So Mandy, thank you for bringing that to our awareness. So you have the choice to choose all that applies in that questionnaire about resources and how we might be able to become available to you. We also, as we mentioned, invite you sharing with us resources that are out there, free resources that are out there. And so you have several opportunities for free resources. Some of our colleagues and teachers have been incredibly generous with their resources. And I'm noticing Rick Hansen's site is not on here, but if you go to rushingtoyoga.org and resources, his practices are there, as well as Brene Brown's downloads, and of course Kristen Neff with the self-compassion. Yes, it's my pleasure. Thank you, Anne. Thank you for being on this journey. So if there's any other way that we can support you, please respond to the questionnaire generically, confidentially, or if you want a personal response, please include your name and email so we know who to respond to. With that, I'll just pause and see if there are any other questions or comments. Okay, and if not, let's just take one more moment to pause, noticing the body in the chair, the breath in the body. And let's allow some wishes to arise for yourself and for all of those who've been on this journey with us. May you and I be happy. May you and I be healthy. May you and I experience moments of empowerment and peace. May you and I have all the resources we need to navigate life's difficulty with ease. May you and I be free from physical and emotional pain and suffering. And may you and I experience moments of inspiration and joy. Releasing the wishes, inviting a gentle attention to rest on the breath sensation in the body. Inviting in a gentle attention to rest and the sound of the bell. Thank you all for your time. Such an honor for me to be with you on this journey. Please know that we are here. And for now, congratulations for graduating from the Integrative Inquiry 15-week Mindful Compassion Leadership course. Mandy, I know you're not done. We'll see you later. Okay. She's in the doctoral program, so they get to be together again in more practice. All right, so thank you all very much. Please take good care and stay in touch.